Well, for those of you who came to this channel from my main channel, the story has an update. Okay, let me explain first. A lot of people don't know this, and this is actually strange to me, but my main channel is youtube.com/timcast, where I do news analysis and commentary that's much more straight-laced, and it's a much more in-depth look at data and facts and, you know, more arguments. This channel is kind of like me reading an article and, like, giving my opinion on it and what's going on in politics. So naturally, people like this channel more because it's less straight-laced, I guess. But I made a video on my main channel, for those of you who didn't see it, talking about how this scientist, Alessandro Strumia, spoke he gave a presentation about how men are being discriminated against in the sciences. And he presented his arguments and data to back those claims up. The point I was making in my video is that sometimes social justice goes too far. In fact, a lot of ways I think it does. Because my official stance is that social justice is a good thing. And even, you know, like a week or so ago at MythCon, which is this convention, Sargon of Akkad was debating this guy Richard Carrier, and they were debating social justice, but eventually realized they agreed that there's a faction of social justice extremists who are bad people. And they were both like, oh, like Sargon really hates racism. You know, it's like he's not a race realist, he hates race realists, he hates racism. And you could say that Sargon is in favor of social justice. If you told him that someone was being racist, Sargon would get mad about it. But Sargon, when he talks about social justice, he's referring to the SJWs, which are illiberal reactionaries. They want to return to this old system of incivility, violence, and segregation, for the most part. Not all of them, but at least enough of them to where it's alarming. And then you have people who you could identify as like a social justice warrior, who is just sort of a temper tantrum throwing authoritarian, who wants their way without democracy, right? It's illiberal. So, in this story, CERN pulled down this guy's data from the website because it was offensive. And I said, if, you know, basically, when science starts taking down data for social justice reasons, then social justice has gone too far. When we start advocating for equality of outcome, it's gone too far. We want to guarantee opportunity, but you can't regulate for outcome because not everybody wants to do the same thing or is good at the same thing. Could you imagine if we regulated for equality of outcome in basketball and we were like, okay, you got to have at least 3 people who are, you know, 4'11", 5'2". It's got to be even, like, actually that wouldn't be so bad if you had, like, teams had to be set up a certain way, because I think rules would make sense. But what ends up happening, it would be ridiculous to try and put people into a game when they're not, like, built for it. You know what I mean? I'll say it. Some people are naturally going to be taller, and that makes them better at basketball. And I think that's fine. It is what it is, you know? Anyway, the update to the story is that CERN has suspended the researcher because he made the claim that men were being discriminated against. Here's what I find so damn funny about it. Imagine if a woman gave a presentation that women were being discriminated against, and so a bunch of men got offended, and then CERN suspended her and pulled down the data proving it. That would be really dumb. It would be a really dumb thing to do, especially for scientists. Well, here you have a man making the claim, and that's exactly what they did. I don't think it's relevant if it's a man or a woman making the argument. If there is discrimination, it is a bad thing, and we shouldn't have it, okay? Discrimination based on, you know, like these immutable characteristics or just things that are totally irrelevant to science, right? The point is, because it was a man saying men were being discriminated against, and women weren't, it's bad. But if a woman makes the same statement in the inverse, it's good. This is a problem. This is discrimination. This actually proves him right, or lends evidence to suggest he was right. So, the story goes, a senior scientist who said physics was invented and built by men has been suspended with immediate effect from working with CERN. Now, while this statement is true, I think it's a bit disingenuous because, look, yeah, you can say physics was built by men, but that's because women weren't allowed to go to school and do things for basically ever. It's only in the past 100 or so years that we've started granting civil liberties to people outside of men. And it is a fact that, for the most part, in the West, in America, it was white men. It was, for a long time. And I think that's a bad thing. I do. So I'm glad to see that we have made such great progress through liberal and progressive policy, not regressive and illiberal policy, right? I take issue with some people who are associated with, like, the anti-SJW classical liberal when they say that progressivism is a bad thing, because no. And I'll go back to the MythCon thing, because even Sargon said there's a difference between social justice warriors and progressives. Right. And people often mix liberal, progressive, and SJW all in the same thing. And that's a problem because when it comes to the core issues that we must defend in this country, the average progressive and liberal will probably agree with the average conservative. Free speech, civility, nonviolence. Violence scares people. It's the illiberal, regressives that we have a problem with. Not progressive, regressive. Okay, there's a difference. I actually said this several times, several months ago. I actually consider myself to be rather progressive. You've got, progressive versus traditional. I am absolutely not traditional. I'm much more progressive. But I'm not an authoritarian. That means I believe racism is bad, sexism is bad, transphobia is bad. All of these things are bad. I believe people have a right to respect and integrity and opportunity regardless of what they believe, where they come from, what they look like, their gender, how they choose to live their lives, so long as they aren't infringing the rights of others. And yes, there's nuance. It can get complicated. But the authoritarians want to change the rules by force. I want to change the rules through progress, right? And that means civility, nonviolence, and it means free expression. And it means that you have a right to disagree with me. It means that even though I think your ideas are bad, you're allowed to have them and you're allowed to express them. And then when you say ideas that I think are bad, I'll tell you my ideas, and you might think they're bad too. And other people will listen, and you have to win based on the credibility of your arguments, because we want to move society towards a better future of understanding and development and science. I'll tell you what I want. I want a Star Trek future. I want a future where I can be in a spaceship and I can travel faster than the speed of light technically, because the warp drive, technically you're not moving, you're going in between space. It's complicated. But Star Trek's awesome. They're in a post-scarcity future with replicators that can make anything. It's so cool. And because of this, Earth has become peaceful and prosperous. There's no poverty. Everyone's literate. Everyone has opportunity. That's a great future. It is. Maybe it's not possible. I don't know. But I have goals, right? I like to point at something and say that's what I want to achieve. However, when you start pulling down science in the name of social justice, we are moving away from the Star Trek future, and that worries me. When you advocate for violence, when you advocate for incivility, this is all a huge problem, and this is regressive, moving away from a better future. Regressive. Professor Alessandro Strumia made the comments during a presentation organized by the European Nuclear Research Center. CERN issued a statement on Monday suspending Professor Strumia pending an investigation. It stated that his presentation was unacceptable. CERN always strives to carry out its scientific mission in a peaceful and inclusive environment, the statement reads, calling the presentation contrary to the CERN Code of Conduct. If your Code of Conduct trumps data, you've got a science problem. I'm sorry. But you know what? Look, the basic story is here. The guy made an offensive comment. He gave a presentation. He showed what he said was evidence. And it may be, I'm saying he said because I can't go through it. And I don't want to get into a huge debate with people saying like, oh, you're calling it evidence. It's not. It's fake. And then you had women saying it was offensive and had to get pulled down. And they're saying, I can't believe it. But check this out. The story was, I pulled up the story on Reddit. And there's some great comments, okay? First one says, the first comment's actually hilarious because it says, CERN scientist Strumia suspended after comments, and he said, considering it takes 16 Tesla magnetic field to levitate a frog, man, they must have had some pretty strong magnets there to suspend a guy. Ha 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 ha, very, very funny science joke. But it gets good, because these comments on Reddit are great. This is the news section, right? And Reddit tends to lean left. What's odd is that the scientists, in quotes, that are arguing against him are not debating his data or stats, they are instead just saying he's wrong and it's terrible. Any good scientist would place his research under peer review. Yes, we want a better future. We want to prove bad ideas wrong. You're not going to prove them wrong. What is it saying? When you tear out a man's tongue, you're not proving him wrong. You're just proving you're scared of what he has to say. And things like this make people believe it must be true. Otherwise, you would have actually proved him wrong. Someone said, he should have realized that facts aren't welcome in today's world, even in the sciences. Ben Shapiro said facts don't care about your feelings. Sure, they don't, but more importantly, feelings don't care about your facts. And that means when you have scientists and they have strong feelings, it doesn't matter if you've presented data because their feelings don't care and won't change based on what is true or not. And that is a problem. Someone said he produced a series of graphs which he claimed showed that women were hired over men whose research was cited more than other scientists in their publications, which is an indication of higher quality. They comment, isn't the whole point of science to allow people to present dissenting views and to allow the scientific process to surface the best ideas and weed out the bad ones? Are women discriminated against? Apparently the answer is yes, and any other answer will result in termination. Imagine if a scientist came out today and said that our universe, you know, the Earth is not in one universe, or like, what's a better analogy? I'm trying to do an analogy about the heliocentric, the geocentric universe. You know, they used to think that the universe revolved around the Earth, and then some dude came out and was like, yo, hey man, I'm pretty sure we're revolving around the sun. And everyone was like, what? And then they did bad things to that guy because he was a heretic. Whatever the reason is, I'm not a historian, but we all know the story. Here's another story. A guy is complaining about discrimination against men, so they terminated him. That is not social justice, okay? This is what's terrifying about social justice extremism, is that they're not actually advocating for social justice. And that's one of the biggest problems I have with it, because I like social justice. I like equal opportunity. I like equality of opportunity. When someone says I'm being discriminated against, I think we should say, let's see if that's true and try and rectify that, because discrimination is a bad thing. Instead, they said, we don't care if you think you're being discriminated against, you're out. And thus, if we continue down this path, what's happening is there were people who fought to end discrimination, and they succeeded greatly. Not perfect, we're not all the way there, but they did a good job. Now, in the name of fighting sexism, in the name of fighting racism, they are advocating for racism and sexism. And that is, it's so damn frustrating, because I want to be in a Star Trek future. I want to be on a spaceship. I want humanity to progress, to travel beyond Earth. Maybe it's not possible, I don't know, but I want to try. But now we've got science being affected by these anti-science people, and you know what? I'll end by saying one thing. The anti-science left has been way more effective at taking down information than the anti-science right ever has, and that terrifies the fuck out of me. Anyway, thanks for hanging out. I'm gonna get out of here. I'll see you guys tomorrow.